Pranam to all of you. Welcome to from Sri Ananda Ashram. I'm blessed Nrisimha Caturdasi here with the Darshan of Sri Gaurada Madhav. Very beautiful. Maybe you can show for a moment. Okay, beautiful decoration as well. Let me ask you some water. Yes. So, nice to see you all. Thank you for joining us in this celebration. We're also having here some honored guests, Sherry, Aid. Thank you so much for being here. And so today we are celebrating the appearance day of Sri Nrisimha Bhagavan. So much to share. This is a beautiful section that Sri Chaitanya Dev will listen over and over again. It is describing Jagannath Puri when he will take Bhagavatam classes from Gadadhar Pandit. He will listen to, especially Gadadhar Pandit will speak this section of Dev and Prahlada. Mahaprabhu will ask, tell it again hundreds of times. The same, quote unquote, same story over and over again, ever fresh, ever new. So there are many things that we can say about Sri Nrisimha Caturdasi. Where to start? Because in one sense we are celebrating today, and this is in a few hours at least here we'll have the exact time when Nrisimha Dev appeared between day and night. And in one sense that's the official celebration today. Okay, Nrisimha Dev appears from the pillar, but in one sense that's the culmination of all that has happened before that needs to be also celebrated. If not, it's just like taking a book and reading the last page, right? Like, okay, this is the culmination, but you are not able to make sense probably of what's the whole book about, what's the last page about. You need to read the whole book to understand the last page. So in the same way, today we are celebrating the last page of the chapter of the Nrisimha Lila. He appears out of the pillar, like the culmination of so many things that happened before. So let's try to go to what happened before that precise moment and understand that all that is also part of the celebration. I'll share a few thoughts that I shared today in the morning. Also, we had a Spanish lecture talking about Nrisimha Caturdasi, and I think those are worthy of being shared in English as well. So the main thing that triggered for me today's topic was there's one verse in Antya Lila in Chaitanya Charitamrita that says that every time that Bhagavan performs any activity, does anything, he is fulfilling multiple purposes at the same time. So God is doing one thing, but actually many things are happening through that one thing. So again, today we are celebrating one thing, Nrisimha Dev's appearance, but many things happen not only before, but even during that precise moment. He's appearing for multiple purposes in this very unique form, which is an important point to make before we start our main theme, which is an important point to make. Bahumurti Ekamurtikam, says the Bhagavatam, which means for us, God is one non-dual, indivisible, eternal person, absolute, which appears in multiple forms. There's one form in multiple forms, one person in multiple persons, the same person. So as a foundation, that makes for a very, in my opinion, broad-minded tradition. Right? It's not like, hey, this is the only form, this is the only name, this is the only way, this is it. But as a foundation, as a principle, we are talking about the unlimited. So we should have some humility in approaching the infinite. So Sri Nrisimha Dev is one of those unlimited forms, and we're there to celebrate his avirbhav, his manifestation, as we do with every other form, because again, in each one of these emotional expressions of the absolute, so much is going on. So despite I'd like to concentrate today and tomorrow on the particular topic of how love shapes the divine, as we have announced, on how devotion poetically can carve the form of the absolute, how God is a byproduct of the love of his devotees. First, I'd like to go briefly, or maybe it won't be so brief, let's see, through some of the things that happened before the official Avirbhav, before the appearance of Nrisimha out of the column. And to understand how those things are also worthy of celebration, right? We are not just celebrating Nrisimha appearing from a column, but celebrating a celebration within the celebration, many other things to celebrate as well. So where to begin? If we were to begin, maybe at some point, because again, we are talking about the absolute, the infinite, the one without beginning. There's no point of beginning point. But let's establish some beginning point, which is this interesting moment in eternity, as the scripture describes, where Bhagavan, God, desires to taste what's known as Vira rasa. Vira rasa. So what does this mean? Well, what does it mean, God tasting rasa to begin with? So one name for the divine is Rasa Raj, or many related names. So Rasa Raj means the king of all rasas, or the king of all. God is absolutely dedicated to relish and savor all the possible emotional spectrum. No? We as humans have some emotional spectrum, and we try to experience that in a wholesome way. And God is not an exception to that rule. It's not that we experience it all, and God is this half-baked, dysfunctional guy who can only experience 2-3 things only. So he tastes it all in the proper way, in the proper context, right? So Rupa Goswami will speak about 5 primary rasas, 7 secondary rasas, and Krishna is tasting all of them. Bhagavan is tasting all of them. So among the secondary rasas, one of them, we have anger, fear, interestingly, compassion, disgust, wonder, and so on. I hope you can relate to those emotions. If not, you are dysfunctional, my friend. And one of them, very interestingly, probably maybe one of the most difficult to relate for some of us, depending on our cultural background, is Vira rasa. Vira rasa translates in English something kind of chivalry. I don't know if you can make sense of that word, chivalry. In this context, that when we say God wants to taste Vira rasa, in plain language means he wants to have the experience of a good fight. All that comes in a good wrestling match. Why not? Why depriving the infinite of that particular spice in the masala? Right? Who are we to this? So it is described in the scripture that at one point God, and here when we say God, we are not saying Krishna. Let me make this difference. With this, I'm not saying Krishna is not God. I'm saying Krishna is, as I like to say, Krishna is something else. No, if we are having the God conversation, Krishna belongs to kind of God, but something else, not something less. No, Krishna is God beyond God. So I like to say, Krishna is not an aspect of God. God is an aspect of Krishna. Here Shri is saying, wow. So Krishna is not an aspect of God. God is an aspect of Krishna. It's an interesting idea. Krishna is God plus intimacy. So much intimacy that he forgets he's God. And he's at home with his family. So I'm making this difference. Why? Because Krishna on a daily basis, he's tasting Vira rasa. He's wrestling with Sridham, Madhu Mangal, his friends. Every single day they're wrestling, and almost every single day he's defeated in wrestling. On top of that, many times this comes in the scriptures. When, for example, I don't know, when Krishna is lifting Govardhan, we may know this famous Leela. Krishna is lifting Govardhan, and at one point again, this is a very interesting section because He's 7 years old. Imagine you have a 7-year-old and he's lifting a hill, a big one. It takes 6 hours to circumambulate, so it's a big one. With the, how's it called, pinky finger of his less powerful hand, the left one, for 7 days in a row. At one point, you start to wonder, who the heck is my son? I mean, who is this person? It's extraordinary. What's going on here? But the interesting thing in the psychology of the Brajavasis is they never think like that, mostly, for the most part. Just show they seeing Krishna doing that, and she's like, he must be hungry. I will feed him. And she starts to feed Krishna. Her Vatsalya takes precedent. And his friends think, Krishna, okay, you are lifting that hill for so long already. Pass that hill to Sridham, who is stronger than you. He defeats you every single day in wrestling. That's the psychology of the Brajavasis. So again, my point with all this is Krishna takes Vira on a daily basis, but the setting of this narrative is not so much Krishna, it's more Vishnu, Narayan, God, in Vaikuntha. It's another mood. The same person, but in another separate, different scenario, different drama. So Vishnu Narayan is not accustomed to have a good fight in Vaikuntha, because Vaikuntha is Vaikuntha. Vaikuntha means no anxiety. Everyone is worshipping Narayan lovingly, respectfully, but nobody will dare to ask Narayan for a good fight. But somehow, it is described in the scripture, Narayan, God wants to relish Vida Rasa, wants to relish that on a daily basis he can experience as Krishna, but he wants to experience more in his more godlike feature. So he wants this heroic combat. So what to do? Because in order to taste Vida Rasa, still Vida Rasa is an exchange of love. All these rasas are Bhakti Rasa, all happen in the concept of Bhakti. So for God to taste Vida Rasa, it has to happen with the Bhakta, with the devotee. So how can I have a good fight with my devotee in Vaikuntha, with everyone is worshiping me very lovingly but respectfully? So what to do with that? So Narayan is kind of like, how do you say? Like this? He's doing this? Itching his head or something? Scratching his head. What to do? And there are two devotees there in Vaikuntha, the two gatekeepers of Vaikuntha, who are so attuned to the desire of their master that even if he's not vocalizing, I want to have a good fight. By just seeing nature of his head scratching, they can intuit he wants to have a good fight. And he's wondering with whom to have a good fight here. Nobody will dare to offer that to me. If I offer that to them, they may become shocked how Vishnu wants to wrestle us. We're in Vaikuntha. So first of all, again, we are speaking about different things that we are celebrating today. First thing, God wants to have a good fight. That's worthy of celebration. No? First ki jai to that. And the second comes here now. These two servants called Jai and Vijay, the gatekeepers of Vaikuntha, fully identify with the need of service for their master. They're absolutely willing to do whatever is required to give him the experience of Virarasa. So that's another thing to celebrate, to appreciate, to relate to as aspirant servants. Okay, wow, they are willing to do, and we will see that whatever is required for that to happen is a lot. No, it's not like, okay, to offer Narayan a good fight, we just have to leave our comfort zone 1 millimeter. No, as we'll see, they need to fall from Vaikuntha, be born and as demons, 3 birds, and so on and so forth. But they are willing to do that. Because if that gives pleasure to our master, let's do it. No? So that's, again, all this is at the same time glimpsing on some level to the degree of surrender and devotion that we find in Vrindavan, where on another level, Krishna is feigning like a headache. And as we know, the gopis, he says, I need the dust from the feet of my devotees. And everyone is like, no way. No, my foot dust on the head of Krishna, that won't work for me. He may even work for him, but for me, so they still have some sense of self-interest, self-concern. But when the gopis come, they are bringing buckets and buckets of foot dust, and Narada is asking them, but do you know the potential consequence of this? Yeah, probably eternal hell, but it's fine if his headache is solved. That's all worthy. So again, this is another dimension of the same principle. Here, Jai and Vijay are like, okay, we are willing to be born 3 birds as demons to satisfy this desire, which may seem like a whimsical thing from God. I want to have a good fight. No, try to follow my point. Some may say, and to satisfy your whim, I have to be born 3 times. They're not. That's not happening. They're not thinking like that, right? So all this is giving us glimpses of the mode of service, no? Anukul, the identification with the pleasure of the object of our affection. So that's another thing to celebrate. So Jai and Vijay, somehow they agree with this, they identify with that need, and they're willing to do the needful for that to happen. So it's interesting because we never hear that Narayan is telling Jai and Vijay, hey guys, I want a good fight. Can you offer that to me? Can we make an... He's not voicing that. He's feeling that. Jai and Vijay, they align with that. They are not voicing that either. And after those 2 situations, a particular circumstance comes to orchestrate whatever is necessary for that to happen. Without anyone having to tell anyone, hey, he needs that, please do. We are in Vaikuntha here, so everything unpacks naturally. If there is a particular need, there's a particular identification with that need, there's a particular circumstance that will arrange whatever is necessary for all that to happen. There are no obstacles, basically. That's another meaning of Vaikuntha, no obstacles. So, of course, what happens, what's the next unfolding, the next layer of celebration, is that eventually the 4 Kumars appear in Vaikuntha. The 4 Kumars are these 4 sages who are very ancient. They are the first children born out of Brahma. So they're basically the eldest people in the universe, but they look like the youngest because the 4 of them look like, I don't know, babies, basically, like 5-year-old, 4-year-old kids, naked. You can only enter into the kingdom of God if you are childlike, right? Not childish. Watch out. Watch out for that. Childlike is not the same, childish. So somehow these 4 Kumaras represent this. And they are mostly depicted not so much as bhaktas, though they undergo some conversion according to the Bhagavad and by smelling tulsi leaves. But at this point in the narration, they are more like inclined toward contemplation of the impersonal Brahman, more concerned with gyan, with knowledge. So they are not so much immersed into the moods of devotion that's happening beyond that door of Vaikuntha that they reach. So they reach Vaikuntha, and the 2 gatekeepers, Jai and Vijay, are there in the door. The 4 Kumars are curious what's going on beyond that door. There are 7 doors in Vaikuntha. So they want to enter. And Jai and Vijay say, nope, you can't enter here. You can enter Vaikuntha just by wanting to enter Vaikuntha or by being curious. That's another important point here. You can only access, the access code, the password is Bhakti. If you have Vaikuntha is a realm that corresponds with the type of Bhakti. So if you don't have the type of Bhakti, you cannot enter Vaikuntha. It's as simple as that is. Golok Vrindavan is another dimension of transcendence that corresponds with the type of love. If you don't have that love, you cannot enter there. It doesn't work like it's like that, basically. So the 4 Kumaras didn't have the type of love that corresponds with the mood of Vaikuntha, but they still wanted to enter. And the Jai and Vijay say, no, it's not happening. So the 4 Kumars got angry, something that we never heard of. These 4 sober, self-controlled sages freaking out at the entrance of Vaikuntha, and start to get angry at the 4 at Jai and Vijay. And Jai and Vijay are not changing their minds. So big, tumultuous agitation at the gates of Vaikuntha, a place known as Vaikuntha, no anxiety. For the first time in history, there was anxiety in Vaikuntha. To the point that the owner of the house, so to say, the master, Krishna, Bhagavan, not Krishna in this case, but Narayan, Vishnu, had to come to the door. Like if you are the owner of a house and at the door of your house at the porch is some, your servant of the house is screaming to someone, you will come like, what's going on here? What's happening? So this is a very interesting section, because then Bhagavan comes and he's basically taking full responsibility for whatever Jai and Vijay may have done or said. He has an idea of what's going on. He asks, but he basically says, whatever they did, I did it. I'm taking responsibility, which speaks about how much God responds for his devotees, how much he takes it personally in that sense. Mm-hmm. Though at the same time, in his words are kind of cryptic, because it seems that he's supporting the four Kumars, like apologizing for, sorry for my servants if they created any inconvenience, but at the same time he's taking full responsibility for them. So the four Kumaras are like, they are not devotees, but they are also very intelligent people, so they realize what's going on here. What's the exchange of love between Bhagavan and his devotees, that he's responding for them fully. He seems to be supporting us, but on a deeper level, he's fully supporting them. What's going on here? So anyhow, another lesson, another thing to celebrate there, right? Bhagavan's full responsibility, full acceptance, full protection, a testament to his connection to his bhaktas. So as we know, in that context, the four Kumars had cursed the two gatekeepers of Vaikuntha, cursed to fall from Vaikuntha. Finally, we have the evidence. And as we said a few minutes ago, the curse was you fall from your post as gatekeepers for 3 birds, yeah, and offer. I mean, they are not saying that, the Kumars are not aware of that, but again, remember, Bhagavan had the thought, I like a good fight. Jai and Vijay had the thought, we'd like to offer that good fight. And Kumaras, without knowing that, were instrumental by the very atmosphere of Vaikuntha that facilitates whatever is required to curse them to be born 3 times as demons, as suras. Still, they are devotees, so God is fighting with his devotees, but they are in the character of being an antagonistic element. And there are 2 brothers, so they will offer 6 times, 6 good fights to Bhagavan, as we will see. Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. Hiranyaksha is fighting with Varahadev, Hiranyakashipu with Nrisimha. Then we have Ravana and Kumbhakarna in the Ram Lila, and then Sisupal and Dantavakra in the Krishna Lila. So plenty of good fight, plenty of Vira Rasa to relish there. So there comes this point where we can say, oh, so then we have the evidence here from the Bhagavatam that someone can fall from Vaikuntha. We can justify our theory that all of us are coming from the spiritual world. No, sorry. That's not the point here. Nobody falls from Vaikuntha. Not even a leaf falls from Vaikuntha, as it will say sometimes, right? What can make you fall from Vaikuntha? How can you fall from the spiritual world? Spiritual world is a fully spiritualized place. There is no place for ignorance, for fear, for doubt, for sometimes no, it's because of envy that we fell. There's no envy in the spiritual world. It's because of curiosity out of what's outside of you will be pretty entertained and absorbed there. There's no place for being curious about something else. You will be curious in the context of what's going on already there. So Jai and Vijay are not falling from Vaikuntha. They're upgrading their service disposition by entering into those roles and giving a good relish of Vira Rasa to Bhagavan. So at any moment it can be counted as a falling down. It's a falling upward, in the words of Richard Rohr. They seem to be falling, but they're upward. They're upgrading their service disposition. So, and of course, it's interesting because this is the only part in the whole Bhagavatam where it seems to be indicated that we fall from Vaikuntha. And this whole narrative of Nrisimha Lila is told actually by Narad Muni to Yudhishthira Maharaj. That's the meta-narrative. So when Narad Muni is saying, Anja and Vijay fell from Vaikuntha, Yudhishthira Maharaj interrupted the narration and say, wait a minute, Narad, how can anyone fall from Vaikuntha? So he presents that as a form of a rhetorical question, right? Like, how could anyone fall from Vaikuntha? He's not actually asking, he's kind of indicating that's not possible. And Srila Prabhupada comments on that verse not through rhetorical question, but through absolutistic conclusive statement saying, it is a fact that nobody falls from Vaikuntha. So another layer to celebrate, nobody falls from Vaikuntha. Bhakti is infallible. Krishna protects. Name Bhakta Pranashati. Krishna says in the Gita, my devotee never perishes. And so many other statements that speak about the power of Bhakti and the protection of love and of the lover. So anyhow, fast forward, we have then what? Jai and Vijay, quote unquote, falling from Vaikuntha, upgrading the service disposition and taking into the mood of an asura, that which translates as demon, though demon may be a little bit inaccurate because each one of us have our own cultural baggage and we filter the word demon, who knows in which way. So the word is asura, and asura means asura. Asu means I can make a play of words in English actually, because asu means very quickly. So asu could mean as soon as possible. Asu. And ra means ramante, or enjoying. But enjoying from a self-centered, dualistic, separatistic mood, not genuine enjoyment. So asura means I want to enjoy as soon as possible, without measuring consequences. No matter if I have to trample on other people's head, I want it. I want whatever it may be. So that's asura. Just for us not to have some like, a demon means whatever, this particular form with a tail, with a few horns here. You don't need all that paraphernalia. You can be an asura way more easily. So Jai and Vijay are born as asuras. One is Hiranyaksha. Eventually he's dealt with by Varahadev. And the other one is born as Hiranyakashipu, who is, again, this big demon that will be offering a very good fight to Nrisimha. So let's not lose context of the original purpose of this whole story. Let's have a good fight. You can see all that needs to happen in order to offer a good fight to Bhagavan. Not any fight, a good one. So Hiranyakashipu is born, as we know. Hiranyakashipu means gold and soft bed, which basically means pursuit of wealth for selfish exploitation and enjoyment. So Hiranyakashipu is the personification of this, basically, of Asuric mentality. And he engages in very intense tapasya, intense penance, trying to acquire more power, more control. And it's very interesting because he engages in deep how to say, deprivation, penance, austerity, so he can enjoy unlimitedly. We have a glimpse of that in the Karma Kanda section of the Vedas, where people, some people will like, in the next life, I want to go to the heavenly planets and taste the heavenly delights, which are very subtle, very refined by comparison to what's going on here. So in order for them to enjoy in a very self-centered way, they have to do lots of penance here, interestingly. So lots of deprivation, lots of penance to enjoy as much as they can. So even if you want that, you have to do some penance, actually. It doesn't work any other way. So Hiranyakashipu engaged in very intense penance, and he starts to stand on one foot with his arms on top of his head, looking at the sun in big summer, not eating for thousands of years. At one point, his whole body is eaten by ants. Only his bones are there, and he can keep his life with the prana in between the bones, something like you can only think of. All that to gain power and control and be able to manipulate more than what he was already doing. And he was worshiping Brahma for this. He thought Brahma is the supreme being in the universe. Actually, that was his idea. So let me get a boon from him. So he does that for a long time. Eventually, Brahma comes and says, okay, you have offered to me this penance. What do you want from me? So Hiranyakashipu say, okay, now is the time. Say, I want immortality. Which of course is interesting, because in one sense we could say, we don't need immortality. We are already immortal, right? I mean, if you understand that you are the soul, you won't ask for immortality. It's like redundant. Now, Krishna, make me eternal. It's like already happening. What else? But Hiranyakashipu, again, he's a great devotee, gatekeeper of Vaikuntha, but now he's fully engrossed into the character and psychology of an asura. So when he's asking for immortality, he's asking for bodily immortality, because for him, this body is the self. So I am this self, this body. I want it to be immortal so I can enjoy in a selfish way as much as I can. So that's the background of his immortality request. And Brahma replies, sorry, but I cannot facilitate that, because me, myself, I don't have that. So how can I give you that? I'm subject to birth and death, though my life is pretty long, to be honest, Brahma said, but still it has an end. So how can I give you that? So then Hiranyakashipu is kind of frustrated and say, what to do? And he tries to think his way out to beat the system, as they will say here, right? So through thinking, to rational calculation, he tries to attain immortality, which is ridiculous, but that's what an asuric mentality will take us to. Trying to do some like bypassing, you know, like skipping some things that we need to go through and trying to think our way out in another way. So he says, okay, Brahma, if you cannot give me bodily immortality, then let me not be killed by any human nor animal. Let me not be killed. And he starts like to make calculation, right? Not in the day, not in the night. What else? Let me not be killed, not on the earth, not in the sky. And like this, no, he starts to make all his list of conditions. He makes his contract. No? Like thinking, oh yeah, I'm pretty smart. With this, I can get bodily immortality actually. And Brahma is like, okay, done. No? Like realizing you don't get it. So anyhow, after this, Hiranyakashipu gains further material influence and power. He becomes kind of a dictator for the whole universe. He dethrones Indra in the heavenly planets. He conquers all material spheres. He self-establishes himself as the king of the world, and I am God, all-powerful, and so on. I mean, while he has a son called Prahlada, right? So here comes a big part of the celebration. To be honest, in this Nrisimha Lila, Prahlada is the one, as we will say in Spanish, who steals the show, right? I mean, Nrisimha Deva appears at the very end. Again, the culmination, that's what he has to do. Good fight, game over. But Prahlad Maharaj is the one building the whole momentum and filling in all the spaces with his devotion and love and so on. So again, for each one of these layers of celebration that we are addressing now, a separate lecture minimum is deserved. So Prahlad Maharaj is the son of Hiranyakashipu. Hiranyakashipu was the biggest asura on earth, and Prahlad Maharaj was the greatest saintly person on earth. Such a paradox to have both together in the family, you know, father and dad. Father, greatest asura; son, the greatest sura, no, the greatest saintly person. So Hiranyakashipu controlled everyone, manipulated everyone, transformed, converted everyone, except for his 5-year-old son. You can imagine how unsettling that was for Hiranyakashipu. So Prahlad Maharaj was born in a Asuric family, Asuric blood, but saintly spirit, which is again another thing to celebrate. It doesn't matter if you come from a low background. I'm not born from a family of redeemed saints or whatever. Here you have Prahlad, born from the greatest demon on earth, and he was Prahlad. So there is hope. And Prahlad in his previous lifetime, this is described in another Purana, he was not the greatest guy on earth either, interestingly. So he was with his girlfriend. He wanted to exploit her, and they have a discussion during a whole night, and they were staying at the temple of Nrisimha at night. They didn't know it was a dilapidated temple. So he thought, oh, this is a good place to have intercourse with my girlfriend, so to say. And he was pretty abusive, and she resisted. They have a discussion. The whole night went on with them discussing in the temple of Nrisimha. I think it was Ekadasi, so they fasted. All this without knowing. But that gave some blessings, some Ajnata Sukritis we call. So he was born as Prahlad, still in a family of Asuras, but Prahlad. So Prahlad is the personification of Santa Bhakti, Santa Rasa, this what in Christianity we'll call the beatific contemplation of God. So Prahlad Maharaj is the embodiment of peacefulness, and he's absorbed in Smaranam, in remembering God and being totally content with that contemplation. He's not much driven to offer personal service to God, like in Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, Madhurya. Santa is more about internally contemplating the reality of the Godhead and experiencing love and wonder, and that's the perfection for someone like Prahlad. And also someone like Prahlad Maharaj is famous for the quality of fearlessness, Abhayatva in Sanskrit. The name that Srila Prabhupada had when he was born was Abhay Charan. So Abhay means fear. So Abhay means fearless. And Abhayatva means fearlessness, right? So Prahlad Maharaj was absolutely fearless, as we will see in a minute. To begin with, you are born and your father is the greatest demon on earth. Probably you will be fearful on some level. He was not. And he was not fearful even in openly sharing his devotion and love. And his father will send this Prahlad to school to be deprogrammed. No, he sent him to some deprogrammers. Sanda and Amarka, they are called. But they were not successful. And Prahlad was converting everyone to Krishna Bhakti and celebrating and so on. Krishna was his Ishtadev. So Hiranyakashipu will ask Prahlad when he was back to school, so what do you learn today in school? And his teachers were trying to teach him about divisive mentality, us and them, group here on this side, here are the good, these are the bad. And Prahlad will say, I've learned that Krishna is the center of everything and we all revolve around him. And everything is so beautiful. And Hiranyakashipu didn't like that. At one point, Hiranyakashipu made arrangement for his son to be killed. That will hit all the news here. Imagine a father throws his son on a cliff, gives poison for him to drink, all the things Hiranyakashipu did. Prahlad will receive the poison. He didn't know it was poison. He just took the glass, he offered it to Bhagavan. The poison turned nectar. He drank nectar. He got more invigorated. He will be thrown from a cliff, and Bhagavan was catching him down, receiving him down, and so on. So he was fearless. And it's interesting because another quality that comes very connected to this fearlessness from Prahlad is his compassion. There are many prayers in the Bhagavatam, like the one I recited in the Mangala Charan, Swastyastu Vishvasya Kalu Prashidatam Dhyantu Bhutani Shivan Mitodya, where he's praying for the welfare of all humanity. May everyone be peaceful. May everyone be, those who are agitated, may be calm. May there be auspiciousness for everyone. May everyone engage in the love and service of God. And he will have this real universal compassion, which is not the same as I need everyone to be practicing my religion. Because sometimes in the name of having compassion, we want to convert everyone. Because I'm not so sure about my own practice, so I need all of you to be doing the same thing so you convince me back. That was not Prahlad Maharaj. He had genuine universal compassion, praying for the welfare of all. Interestingly, that's something I always like to connect. In his birth in the Gaur Lila, because we can go to Gaur Lila for a minute, and Prahlad Maharaj appears there as Vasudev. Vasudev. So at one point he approaches Mahaprabhu, Sri Chaitanya Dev, and tells him, please take all the karma of all entities in the world, in the cosmos, and give that to me. And I remain here paying for that eternally and free all of them. I'm willing to do that. So that's Prahlad Maharaj in Gaur Lila. So that's again, you can see the footprint there still. So Prahlad Maharaj had deep fearlessness and of course deep compassion, and there's a connection between the two. And we can learn to that, and we should celebrate that, because when you are fearless, fearlessness gives you the freedom to feel everything. And you can feel the pain of others, and then therefore you can be compassionate. Many times I cannot be compassionate because I'm afraid of what you are feeling. Fear paralyzes, fear gets in the way, fear shuts us down. So Prahlad was fearless, which means he was not afraid of feeling anything. Or more precisely, he was not afraid of feeling everything. And that opened his heart to connecting with what everyone else was feeling, and genuinely connecting with deep compassion, universal compassion. So that's, again, a cherished goal for us to attain. And all this, just a brief mention, but of course I cannot avoid thinking of all this fearlessness and compassion, because one of the main qualities described in the scripture in relation to the sannyas ashram, of being a sannyasi, is abhayatva, or fearlessness. And I personally have received the order of sannyas on a day like today, Narasingha Caturdasi. I received sannyas 16 years ago. And on a day like this, I was supposed to receive the sannyas another day, but the guru who gave me sannyas at that time said, oh, but today is Narasingha Caturdasi. Prabhupada loved to give sannyas on that day. So he asked a sannyasi friend of mine, do you happen to have new clothes, sannyasi clothes? And we were in a different state of the country. We were in Argentina. I was supposed to receive sannyas in Buenos Aires, the capital city. We were in Santa Fe, which means Holy Faith. It's another province, we will call. So we were not close. We were in a very different, we were in a garage. I can tell you, I was not expecting to receive sannyas in a garage, but it happened that way, and it was really interesting. So we were in that garage, and my then guru will ask, like, oh, today's Nrisimha Day. It was 3 days before the supposed day, and he asked this sannyasi, do you have new sannyas clothes? And this sannyasi friend of mine who generally you don't travel with new clothes that you never use. He said, I happen to have a pair of clothes. Bring them. So I received sannyas in a garage in Nrisimha a day like today, 16 years ago. And I always identify with this quality of abhayatva, not to say that I'm embodying it or anything like that, but the aspirational part of that, like being fearless. But again, fearlessness not in any form of egoic, like, how to say, toxically masculine sense of courage. Oh, I have no fear of anything. Here I am, Maharaj. And I will abuse all of you and treat you bad to show you how fearless I am. It's like, oh my God. God protect us all from that. But fearless in this way that we are related. Okay, Prahlada is the personification of fearlessness and the personification of universal compassion. So he's fearless in a way that he allows himself to feel it all in himself, in relation to others, and that's what allows him to extend that. So again, another layer to celebrate from this Nrisimha Lila and Prahlad Maharaj and so on. So all this is an introduction to the actual theme of the lecture. So sorry for that. Can we turn on the light? So fast forward, then this attempted, Hiranyakashipu is attempting to have Prahlad killed. It doesn't work. So finally he attempts to take, how to say in English, take justice in his own hands. Say, I will kill myself, my 5-year-old son, which is like, wow, that's a little bit too much. So he's there with Prahlad, and he said, well, I will kill you now. Will your God protect you? Because at this point, Prahlad was so God conscious that it was unbearable for Hiranyakashipu. It was too much of a threat for him. Everyone was flying at his feet. Indra, this great cosmic administrators, and his 5-year-old son was, without challenging him, without like boosting, I am this, just silently, humbly, was threatening his whole edifice to collapse, to shatter. So it was too much for Hiranyakashipu. Say, I have to eliminate this element from my life, even though if it's my 5-year-old son. So I will kill you with my own hands. And Prahlada was like, come on, Dad. No, he didn't say that, but he was totally fine. He was like, are you not afraid? And Prahlada's like, no. Will your God protect you? Yes. Where is your God? I'm not seeing your God anywhere. So Prahlada is saying, Nrisimha is from behind, left, right, center, in between. I mean, God is everywhere. As I like to say, when he was asked, where is your God? Prahlada replied, where is he not? I cannot find a spot, a space in between the atoms that he's not. So sorry that I failed the test. He's everywhere. I cannot find a place where he's not. And of course, as we know, that's when Hiranyakashipu asked him. So he's even in that pillar of the palace. He's at this point in Indra's palace. He has taken his throne. And he said, Dad, I told you, he's everywhere. There's not a place he's not. Even in the pillar, even in the pillar. Let's see. Let's make the experiment. So Hiranyakashipu hits the pillar. He was pretty powerful. He could hit the pillar and destroy it. And from that, we come to this moment, this culmination that we are celebrating today. But hopefully you saw all that took to that. and that pillar starts to, very powerful sound starts to come from that pillar, which of course, that's Nrisimha appearing out of a pillar, which is another thing to celebrate. God can appear from anywhere. Matter can reveal the divine if we have the eyes to see, if we have the heart in the right place. Krishna is in every atom. Krishna is in a pillar. Krishna is in the carpet. Krishna is in blade of grass. Sanatana Goswami will say, if you relate to a blade of grass, for what the blade of grass actually is, you attain all perfection. Because what the blade of grass actually means is a vessel that is hosting the presence of the divine. Every atom is an embassy of the Supreme. God's presence is oozing from every corner of creation. Prahlada Maharaj could see that. So that's another thing to celebrate. Matter is not an obstacle to the divine. We have been very expert at creating that obstacle in the name of religion and putting this world as a bad place that gets in the way. Prahlada Maharaj is showing that's not the case. From any corner imaginable, God can manifest. So that was the case. So another layer to celebrate that, matter revealing God's presence. So Nrisimha appears, and finally Bhagavan has the chance of a good fight. Remember, this was all about Vira Rasa. Bhagavan wanted to taste this chivalry, heroic mood of fighting. So Hiranyakashipu, great devotee, the evil of the movie, but this is the best actor, the best person there. Many acharyas have made the case, arguably the bhakti of Hiranyakashipu is higher than that of Prahlada. I remember some years ago giving a lecture called The Glories of Hiranyakashipu, right? Because in the background, it's all in service, right? He's offering himself in service, even if he has to play a role where he will be hated or remembered for eternity as the bad guy. That makes me think of something that Srila Siddhar Maharaj once said when he was talking about Christ and Judas. And Srila Siddhar Maharaj will say, actually, Judas was the most surrendered all the 12 disciples of Jesus. And in his view, he said, actually, he knew that someone needed to play that role of betraying Jesus. And he was willing to do that. He entered into that role, though the price to do that is he will be remembered forever as the one who betrayed Jesus. But he was willing to pay that price for the whole lila, so to say, to unfold. So here we have something similar, if you will. No? So it's important to look beyond the appearances, what appears to be one way or another. So they had this good fight. This is described in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Nrisimha Dev, Hiranyakashipu, they fight for a while. Vira rasa is tasted. Culmination is happening. And here comes something very interesting that connects with the main theme of today's lecture, which is how love shapes the absolute. Because the Ishtadev of Prahlad Maharaj, the chosen deity, was not Nrisimha Dev, it's Krishna. Prahlad Maharaj is in his inner altar, he has Krishna, he doesn't have Nrisimha Dev. So the question is, why not Krishna appeared? And why Nrisimha Dev appeared? So here we have this idea of God appears as a byproduct of love. So Prahlad has a certain love for Krishna. So you could say, okay, so that's an important point. We could say, okay, if Prahlad loves Krishna, then Krishna will appear as Krishna to reciprocate with his love. Yes, but in this particular case, the circumstance required him to appear as Nrisimha Dev to fulfill all these multiple purposes. One, to protect Prahlad for sure in a ferocious form, but also remember that Brahma is a devotee. Now here we have different devotees. Hiranyakashipu is a devotee, you ultimately, right? Playing the role of Asura. Prahlad is a devotee. Brahma is a devotee. Brahma was the one who fulfilled the promise to Hiranyakashipu. Remember when he said, I want not to be killed by any man or by any animal. Okay, half man, half lion. I want not to be killed in the day or in the night. So he was killed at, how do you call in English? Dusk. In between moment. I don't want to be killed on the earth or in the heaven. He will be killed on the lap. So Krishna had to appear in that form to keep Brahma's promise, to protect Hiranyakashipu, to protect Prahlad, and to have a good fight with Hiranyakashipu. So many things happening at the same time. So as we say before, one action by God fulfilling different simultaneous purposes. So anyhow, he takes that form, and eventually, as we know, after the good fight, eventually it's time. No, it was not yet dusk, so they were fighting. No, it was maybe 4 or 5 p.m. No, they're fighting, they're having a good fight. But again, Brahma's promise has to be fulfilled. So at one point, Nrisimha Dev realizes, okay, time, alarm. So he takes Hiranyakashipu and puts him on his lap. And that's the needful, basically, right? Which is basically tearing apart Hiranyakashipu. It's described in detail, and it may sound like gory, right? Not gore, but gory, right? But all this like brutal, gory description is to speak about how Nrisimha Dev is tearing apart misconception, illusion, separate interests in a loving way, in a protective way, ultimately. Of course, part of that wildness comes from the momentum he gained from such a good fight. But you ultimately remember, he's having an interaction with his devotee there. Still, Hiranyakashipu is one of the gatekeepers of Vaikuntha. It says that Nrisimha Dev takes away his intestines and garlands himself with Hiranyakashipu's intensity, which for some might be like, oof, I need to go to the bathroom. But some acharyas have interpreted that like, oh, Bhagavan is taking the inner essence of his own devotee and garlanding himself with that. Again, externally it may seem something else, but in a deeper essence, he's kind of acknowledging to his devotee, you are playing such a nice role for me to taste Vira Rasa. Thank you so much. I cannot but ornament myself with your own self. Right? So that's what's happening in the invisible. In the outer, something else is going on because, again, there's some momentum of the good fight, and that needs to take place. And again, also some acharyas have said Nrisimha Dev is the personified form of God's Sudarshan chakra. You may have heard about the Sudarshan chakra, this disc that God has. When he appears, Vishnu Narayan with 4 arms, he has two more user-friendly hands and two more a little bit terrifying hands, two with the lotus and the conch shell, soft, beauty, auspicious, and the other two is a glove and the Sudarshan. So every time we hear the Sudarshan, when that's released, generally it's beheading people. But again, besides a literal reading of that, watch out for literalism here. Sudarshan means correct vision, right? Darshan means vision. Su means nice or proper vision. So the discus has to do with changing our perspective, changing our angle of vision, as Sudarshan will say, and give us proper perspective. So, and generally our wrong vision comes from this part of us. We are generally stacked neck up. So that needs to be removed. that needs to be removed. So Sudarshan comes, proper vision, discus comes, cuts your head. So all that symbolizing us getting stuck here and having no proper vision and connecting more with our heart and realizing things as they are. So again, this tearing apart of Hiranyakashipu, who represents the wrong vision, is like the tearing apart, this Sudarshan personified tearing apart of of the illusion and replacing it with proper vision. Again, Hiranyakashipu doesn't need that. He's a gatekeeper of Vaikuntha. We need that. Right? So there's something else to celebrate. Of course, from a more general narrative, we are celebrating here the triumph of good above evil, and how even when there is pain and suffering and bad things happening, love always prevails. This is also part of the heroic narrative in many tales, and this is not an exception to that. So as we can see, many things to celebrate. And again, as I wanted to just center on that, but we will be more my concluding remark, this idea that God takes shape out of the love of a devotee. So let's spend a few minutes on that idea, because it's a very important idea for us in our tradition. As I like to say, God is a byproduct of love. So whatever love a devotee has, Bhagavan adopts a corresponding form to reciprocate to that. If we have Hanuman here, Bhagavan appears as Ramachandra. As we said a moment ago, Vaikuntha is a particular place which corresponds with a type of love, right? So there is a correspondence between forms of love and a particular ideal scenario or stage where that love can be expressed. So the same argument can be made to particular types of love and forms that God manifests to reciprocate to that love. As it happened here, and as it happens in many other instances. So I like to say God is a byproduct of love, of more poetically, he's carved, sculpted by the devotee's love. That makes him take a particular shape. On some level, we can experience that here ourselves, we could say. I mean, if you are, I don't know, if you're a mother and your baby comes, you enter into a particular mood and you adopt a particular shape. Even your face may change, certain color. Maybe you may not have two more arms, but like Narayan in Vaikuntha, but you will be changed physically, not only emotionally. And depending with whom you are related, that will make you transform in some level. So what to speak of the divine, who has a spiritual body and who relates so deeply with his devotees, and he is deeply affected by the love of his devotees. We are not worshiping here an immutable God that is in front of his devotee. I don't feel anything. You only feel something for me. I'm God. I'm transcendent. I'm beyond all this emotional stuff. No. Now, Christianity will say we are made in the image of God, and we can make the argument God is made in the image of love. Made, again, not made from time and point in time. But that's what happens, right? Jiva Goswami says that in the, I think, Krishna Sandarbha very clearly. He said, every particular manifestation of God comes as a direct result of a corresponding unique quality of devotion. So you have a certain type of bhakti, that corresponds with a particular form of God. There's this famous story where once Krishna was in during Rasa Lila with the gopis. So they were dancing, celebrating, singing, and suddenly Krishna disappears, as usual. It needs to be to upgrade the whole thing, to take everything to another level. And the gopis start to look for him and run, and Krishna disguises himself as Narayan. Which is funny. Krishna is disguising himself as God. When we speak about Krishna, God becomes a disguise. It's like, what's going on here, right? So anyhow, so Krishna disguises himself as God. So two more arms appear again: the discus, the disc, the club, the conch shell, and so on. The lotus, 4 arms, Narayan. So the gopis are running, looking for Krishna in separation from him, dying in separation, and suddenly they're running there, come across God. Imagine, what would you ask if you come across God? Well, the gopis had only one question in mind, one only question, which was, where is Krishna? That's the only thing they had to ask to God, because they figure out, okay, here is God. God is omniscient, he knows everything, so he must know where is Krishna. So let's ask him, where is Krishna? And Krishna, as God, was like, how can they love me so much that they even meet God and they only are asking about me? So Krishna is perplexed, so he doesn't reply as God. He didn't say anything, he just stays there. So the gopis are like, God is not responding, so let's continue looking for Krishna. They continue. And after a few minutes come Sri Radha. She was not with the other original gopis because her love for Krishna is so much more intense that when Krishna disappeared, she fainted and lost consciousness. She was not able to immediately go and look for him. So when she recovers, she starts to look for Krishna. And there you have Krishna faking that he's God. Right? But when Radha comes, her love, her unique quality of love is so particular, so intense, that Krishna cannot keep his form as Narayan. So he's forced to, 2 of his arms disappear, and his other 2 forms take the posture of the flute, and he becomes crooked in 3 parts, like we see here. Tribhanga Lalita. So he's carved by the love of Radha. Follow my point? So this is a lila that establishes the tattva or the siddhanta through the lila. In the lila, the love of Radha is so particular and specific that invokes a particular form of God. Even when God is when Krishna in this case is making the best to do something else, not possible. Sorry. So God is shaped by the love he receives. There are many, I don't want to torture you with quote from scripture, but so many verses in the Bhagavatam, from Bhakti Yoga Paribhavita Hritsaro Jasesra Tekshitapata Nanata, so many verses that say the divine assumes transcendental forms to fulfill the desires of his devotees. Whatever form God takes, that's in response to Allah. In Chaitanya Charitamrita it is said, as the servant is transformed by the qualities of the Lord is transformed by the qualities of the servant. That's another way of putting it. The qualities means the love of the servant. Now, Krishna famously says in the Bhagavad Gita, what chapter 4, verse 11, according to how you approach me, I reciprocate accordingly. So that's not to be taken in an abstract way. Sometimes we have this ability of reading these lines and playing them out in the most abstract possible way, instead of the opposite. What's the most specific, personalized way we can play out that line? As you approach me, I reciprocate accordingly. Basically means what we are talking now. No, it's not that if you love, I don't know, let's say we all hear our chosen deity is Sri Ramachandra. It's not like, okay, so for you guys, the Absolute will appear from Ramachandra. For those who worship Krishna, he will appear as Krishna. For those who worship whatever, Nrisimha, it's not only that he appears in those forms, but for each one of us who worship Ram, Ram will appear in a unique, irrepeatable form to reciprocate with our unique and irrepeatable love. Because there's, I mean, no two lovers are the same, right? There are no two devotees that love God in the same way. Even if we all belong to the same tradition, to the same sampradaya, our deity is the same, we worship whatever, Krishna, Mahaprabhu, each one has their own flavor of love. It's very unique, very specific, very radically personal. So, and Krishna, as we say, his form is a result of love. So he will take a unique form to reciprocate with each single devotee. In that sense, there are not two Krishnas. I mean, it's always the same person taking different forms, but for each particular devotee, Krishna will be carved out in a unique, irrepeatable form to reciprocate with that unique, irrepeatable expression of love. That's why we call it radical personalism. No, that's personalist at the utmost. So, and that's how he appeared in this unique form to protect Prahlad Maharaj. To go back for a moment to the Nrisimha Lila. Again, we already explained why Nrisimha Dev appeared and not Krishna, but the form of Nrisimha Dev was already known. It's not that it started to exist from that moment, but the unique way he appeared that moment was not known before. That's what it is mentioned that after, that's another whole section that we haven't gone through today, and there's so much to celebrate, that what happens after Hiranyakashipu is killed and Prahlad starts to pray to him, and Nrisimha Dev offers him blessings, and he doesn't want anything, and he starts to pray for his father. But before Prahlad goes, all the devas are there. When Hiranyakashipu is killing, Nrisimha Dev is killing Hiranyakashipu, all the devas that were made subjects to Hiranyakashipu, subjects, you say, are all like, hopefully he kills him finally, because we are all like prisoners of Hiranyakashipu now. So all the devas are there, and eventually Hiranyakashipu is killed, and flower petals come, and even Lakshmi Devi shows up. Lakshmi is the consort of Nrisimha Dev, of Vishnu Narayan, but she says at one point, I never saw him in that way. This form is the first time I'm seeing it. So it's not that Nrisimha Dev never appeared before, but that particular version of Nrisimha Dev that is reciprocating with the unique love of Prahlad, that was new. There is place for newness in transcendence. Again, we're talking about something that is ever evolving, ever expanding, ever evolving. So Nrisimha Dev is born, in one sense, from a pillar, but in one sense is born out of the love of Prahlad, right? Krishna is known as Yashodanandan, the son of Yashoda. We don't call Nrisimha Dev Stamba Nandana. Stamba means pillar. We don't call Nrisimha Dev the son of a pillar, because he was not born out of pillar. He was born out of Prahlad Maharaj's love, shaped in that very unique form that he's taking, right? So, and again, he took that particular form to keep Brahma's promise in place, to have a good fight with Hiranyakashipu, and to protect Prahlad in a way that was required. I mean, to reciprocate his love is to protect your devotee. That's the way you show your love to him. And sometimes the way you protect the devotee as God may take unexpected forms. Like I like to say, when Krishna was lifting Govardhan hill, going back again there, before that, Indra is sending all this rain, and everyone in Vrindavan is like, we are about to be killed by this rain. This is too much. So they go to Krishna, please protect us. And I can imagine nobody in Vrindavan was imagining which will be the protection, how the protection will take shape. Maybe not even Krishna at that moment. It just came, So he took over the hill like a mushroom. Like, look, for a week, big umbrella for the whole of Vrindavan, let's have a party down there. So it was unexpected, but that was the shape that protection needed to take place. Or in the famous case, as we were talking the other day, when Draupadi was being disrobed in the assembly of the Kurus, and he's calling Krishna, for protection. So one may imagine, okay, Krishna will appear and will behead everyone or who knows what. No, he appeared as unlimited sari. That was Krishna. Krishna, the unlimited, took the form of unlimited cloth to keep Draupadi's dignity. Nobody, not even Draupadi, probably was expecting that's how he will show up and protect me. But that was, how do you say in English? Custom tailored in English, like fitting the necessity of the moment, right? So in this particular case, the same. There was not only the necessity of Prahlada to be protected, but of having a good fight with Hiranyakashipu, keeping Brahma's promise, and a few other things. So Krishna is Kalanidhi. One name for God is Kalanidhi, which means an ocean of artistic creativity. So he's a pretty smart guy, to put it simply. So he's very crafty. So he appeared in a particular form that fulfill all those purposes simultaneously, right? So that's basically some of the things we are celebrating today in Narasingha Caturdasi. I like to conclude on this high note of how God's form is being sculpted by the devotee's affection. Also because tomorrow we will be celebrating the appearance or the manifestation of Sri Sri Radha Raman, which is arguably the main deity of Vrindavan, and which is in one sense a self-manifest deity also, which appears out of the love, in this case of Gopal Bhatta Goswami, also from rock, right? Nrisimha appeared from a rock pillar, but actually he didn't appear from rock. He appeared out of Prahlad Maharaj's love. In the same way, Radha Raman appeared from a rock, from a Salagram Shila, but actually he's appearing out of Gopal Bhatta Goswami's love. So there's a very interesting correlation between these two leelas that happen one after the other, one day after the other. Tomorrow we'll continue. And also, hopefully, we can glimpse how, because today we were talking more about Nrisimha Lila, God in Vaikuntha wanted to taste a good fight, but we made some difference between that and Krishna in Vrindavan, who is God beyond God. But if we properly appreciate what we are talking about today, that can lead us to Vrindavan. That can lead us to Radha Raman, as it will happen tomorrow. By properly appreciating how Bhagavan takes shape out of the bhakti of someone like Prahlad, by properly appreciating all that, we'll be taken naturally to the goal that our Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition generally invites us to, which is the intimacy, the sweetness, and love of Vrindavan, that tomorrow we will address more in detail, personified in the form of Sri Sri Radha Raman. So basically that, I want to share a few thoughts today with you about, again, what we are celebrating today, but how the specific thing we celebrate, the Avirbhav, the appearance of Nrisimha, comes with so much background that is also worthy of celebration. There are so many celebrations within the celebration. So hopefully we can keep all that in mind and understand that even today, we just touch one point of an infinite line. There will be so many other things that we could explore, and all of them are worthy of celebration. And of course, all of them give us a trailer of a celebratory life we want to have forever in eternity. That's Kirtaniya Sadahari. Perpetually engaging in Kirtan means perpetually participating in a life of celebration. So with that said, let's put the discussion to rest here, and hopefully we can somehow internalize some of these ideas, and of course make them own these ideas, in the sense of this is not only an ancient story between a half man, half lion and one 5-year-old boy happening somewhere else, but how all that relates to me. How can I make that personal? How can I participate in that? How that's speaking to me where I am on my journey? So that's the homework I leave to each one of you for today and for the rest of eternity. We have lots of homework. So thank you so much for all of you to connecting today and making time, making space, and being present and open. And hopefully we can meet tomorrow, since somehow this is a 2-part series. Tomorrow we continue with Sri Radha Raman and continue exploring this principle of how the sweet absolute becomes a byproduct of love, and his form becomes sculpted by the devotion of his servants. So, Shri Nrisimha Bhagavan ki jai, Bhakta Prahlad Maharaj ki jai, Shri Nrisimha Caturdasi ki jai, Shri Gaur Radha Madhav ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Premanand Hari Hari Bol.